Thank you very much. Thank you, Jed, for this wonderful award. Thank all of you. And I want to thank, of course, Jed Wallace, who is the CEO of the California Charter School Association, for the great work that he's doing and for the great leadership that he's showing. Let's give him again a big, big hand for the great work. And Secretary Barney Reese, where's Barney Reese? Right over there. Let's give her a big hand again for coming back. She said, I'll be back, and she's back. As the Secretary of Education, it's great. And then, of course, Mayor Kevin Johnson is here in the audience somewhere. This is his birthday, I think. So make sure afterwards you all can sing happy birthday to Kevin Johnson, okay? He's a great mayor and a great leader in the charter school movement also. So I want to thank all of you and for having me here today and to say a few words about the importance of charter schools. Of course, this room is filled with parents and with teachers, education leaders, and people that really believe in charter schools. So I want to congratulate all of you and just want to come by and say thank you, thank you, thank you for all the great work that you're doing. Let's give all of you a big hand for the great work that you're doing. I mean, obviously, there's nothing more important than the future, and the future of our children and their education in the state of California. And of course, you are the architects of that future. I think that I have seen firsthand of how important teachers are and how important it is to cater to education to our children. When I was with the President's Council on Physical Fitness in Sports, it was more than 20 years ago, I traveled through all 50 states, and I saw firsthand when I promoted fitness and I met with those education leaders and physical education leaders of how dedicated they were and what an impact they made on those kids. The same was again when Barney and I started the after-school programs around 20 years ago, and then later on passed Proposition 49, the After-School Education and Safety Act, and again I traveled through hundreds of schools and worked with teachers, and how willing the teachers were to stay the extra hours between 3 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon to go and help those kids that don't have parents in the afternoon because they're working, and they didn't want those kids to go out and get into trouble between 3 and 6, which is the kind of the danger zone for kids. And so they stayed the extra 3 hours every day in order to provide for the kids homework material and to help them with the homework assistance, tutoring, give them arts and music programs, give them physical education and sports programs and so on. So I saw again there in the trenches of how helpful and how dedicated of the teachers we have here in California. And the same is also with the charter schools. As when I became governor, I've seen again also firsthand of the great work that is being going on here. And you all are on the front lines of teaching and mentoring and grooming those kids. And I know that how important it is also to form those partnerships between the teachers, the school principal, and the parents. And I know that when I grew up as a kid, I mean, we were wired as kids 24 hours a day. There was no way we could go without having some supervision. And there was a great partnership there in Austria between my parents and between the teachers and the mentors in the school and the coaches, the school principal, everyone worked together. And this is also what I see in the charter schools here, which is so important. So I want to say congratulations to all of you for creating this kind of an atmosphere and this kind of a commitment to our kids. Now, the other reason, of course, why I wanted to come here again also is, besides saying thank you to all of you and appreciating the great work you do, is just simply because I love charter schools. I love charter schools. I have for decades. And of course, there was a slow beginning with charter schools, but I made sure that I promised during my campaign in 2003 that I would do everything that I can to make sure that we grow and that make charter schools grow and increase in the amount of charter schools that we have available. Charter schools are a blazing new trail in public education. The beauty of charters is that they offer parents choice, and they allow teachers more creative freedom and foster innovation. And it also, charter schools mean hope. And it means, choices. We talk so many times about voucher system and all this. We don't need any of that. What we really need is choice. Just like when that's right. I mean, when we go out shopping, we go to a store. If you like the store, we go back. If you don't like the store, you go to another store. And if you don't like that store, you go to another area and go to several stores. And you try it out. You have the freedom to do that. But in the education arena, we were not allowed to do that. Our kids were locked into schools until just very recently when we created the reforms. But you are that choice. You are the alternative for those kids. And this is why it is so important, because you can cater to the needs of individual parents, you can cater to the individual students and to the individual communities. And I think that is tremendous power, and that is extremely important. We have seen so many great turnarounds from regular, traditional public schools to charter schools. I mean, Kevin Johnson, our mayor here of Sacramento, is a perfect example. Before he was even mayor, I remember visiting his school, his charter school, the St. Hope Academy, several times, and I saw the great progress that was made and how he turned a failing school into a successful school. So let's give him a big hand again of the great work that he has done on that. And then another one that comes to my mind is Jonathan Williams of the Accelerated School in Los Angeles. What great accomplishment there has been. I mean, I'm really stunned when I read those reports, and he's not only a great leader there in that school, but is also representing the charter schools on the State Board of Education and doing a great job. Let's give him also a big hand for the great work that he's doing. And then there's this wonderful couple, Gene and Sandra Fisher, husband and wife duo. What a great couple from Los Angeles. And of course, in 1997, they founded the Watts Learning Center, which is a charter school that is in a very difficult area, let me tell you. Very impoverished neighborhood with tremendous challenges with gangs and crime and despair and all of this. But with their will and with their love for children, with their caring for the children, and with tremendous amount of discipline, they pulled it off. As a matter of fact, in 2000, the API was around the 500 area in this school. And then it went to 550, and then to 600, and then to 650, and to 700. And now the API is above 800. So let's give them a big hand to both of them. And I think that Sandra, where's Sandra? Because Jean couldn't make it, but Sandra, right here. Thank you so much. Stand up, come on, we want to see you. Great leader here. Let's give her a big hand. So those are really great stories. And of course, the inspirational stories all over this room, all around this room. I mean, if I look out there, I see great action heroes. That's what I see out there. Great action heroes. You are the true action heroes, This is why, yes, absolutely. And so I just want you to know that you have a great partner in the governor's office. I've said this earlier, that when I ran for governor, I promised you that, and we have done it over and over again. Our top priority of my administration has been to support charter schools and to support the whole charter school movement. And I've signed legislations many times to help charter schools, for instance, making it easier for school districts to approve new charter schools. We have worked to make sure that you have access to low-cost facility financing. We changed the funding formulas to help level the playing field between charters and traditional schools. And then in 2006, as you know, we campaigned up and down, brought Democrats and Republicans together to pass the 1D bonds to build more schools, but they would not sign those bonds until they put in that there's $500 million available for charter schools, specifically to build, expand, and renovate charter schools. Like I said, I'm very happy with the progress that we have made. The charter school movement has exploded since then. Since when I came into office, there were around 400 charter schools, and I promised that we would double them, but we are now at more than 800 charter schools, and we went from 160,000 students to 350,000 students. And so the charter school movement is exploding, not only in California, and luckily all over the country. And it's great to see the statistics and to see, for instance, that 65% of the charter schools have a long waiting list. So this is how hot charter schools are. They're sizzling. You see what I'm saying? They're sizzling. That's how hot they are. Whereas other schools, the kids want to drop out, but they can't because they need the signature from the school principal. They want to leave. Here with charter schools, there's a waiting list. So it just shows to you what is the best alternative. The best alternative is charter schools. This is obvious right here. Now, of course, there's some special interests out there that don't like you in charter schools. They just don't. That's just the way it is. I mean, I know that because, let me tell you, every year when I get legislation and bills down to my desk, there's all kinds of interesting bills that always want to derail the charter schools. But of course, we are very careful of that because we are sensitive about this issue. And so I always look at it as the bill something that helps charter schools, or is the bill something that will hinder charter schools? If it helps charter schools, I put my signature on really in a big way. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is right there. But when it hinders charter schools, then we say, hasta la vista, baby, and we terminate that bill. It's very clear. So the bottom line is that we all have to work together, and this is something that we can't just do in this state. And this is why I was one of the first Republicans to come out and commend and congratulate President Obama, because the race to the top, it was a great, great idea, and it made us all look at this $4.3 billion and start getting involved in the race to the top, and it created reforms right here in California. And we signed historic education reforms that I've been fighting for, of course, for years. And we gave parents now the freedom to leave failing schools, as I said earlier, and without the signature from the school principal or anything, but you just can leave the school and also the school district. And we give parents also the right to turn the children's school into a charter school, or fire the school principal, or close down the school completely. So those are great, great choices if you have more than 50% of the parents' signatures on a petition. So there's great, great powers, and these are the great choices that we have available. Now, obviously, the reforms that we have created for this race to the top was not enough. It fell short. I don't know if you heard, just a few hours ago, we got the information from Washington that we did not make it in the top 6 as the top 16 finalists for the race to the top. So we have to do more reforms. And one of the things that I want to reform so we can compete again is to lift that cap on charter schools. We got to lift that cap, because when we lift that cap, we can be much more competitive. And also reward teachers because of their ability rather than seniority, which is another one of those reforms that we need to create. The bottom line is we have to continue fighting, and we always have to be very much aware that anyone can derail us. I mean, we have just seen recently again in the LAUSD the situation where they supported and joined the race to the top, but then when it came to handing out to charter schools, some of the failing schools, they fell short. As you know, there was only 4 out of the 30 failing schools that were awarded charter schools in Los Angeles. So to me, this is absolutely unacceptable. And it is when school districts deliberately limit the choice available to parents and the students who are the most in need. To me, this is unacceptable. Also, what is unacceptable is when school districts approve a parcel tax to raise funds, but then specifically exclude charter schools from access to any of those funds. That is also unacceptable. And when school districts ignore charter requests for facility use, which California approved through Proposition 39, that is also unacceptable. So there's a lot of work that we still need to do, but together we can do it. And I told you, when I was sworn in, In 2003, on November 17th, I said, there's a massive weight we must lift of our state. Alone, I cannot lift it, but together we can. And let me tell you something, you guys have been great training partners and great lifting partners. Together, we are doing a lot of lifting here, let me tell you. So thank you very much for that great work. Now let me just talk briefly about the coming year. As you know, we face another $20 billion deficit. However, I drew the line in the sand. I made it very clear that our state, our economy, our future is so dependent on education that as far as I'm concerned, we will protect education. We will fund Education Proposition 98 fully. And my budget maintains the same level of funding for schools this year as we had last year, even though we have a $20 billion deficit. And we even included $20 million, and especially in categoricals, so that charter schools can access this money. But of course, the bottom line is that is not enough money for education, all of this. And of course, we have people I have met in the last 2 days with student leaders, and I have met also with education leaders, with professors, and with university leaders, with everybody. And also from the community colleges, kindergarten through 12, Jack O'Connell, everybody was in my office, and we had wonderful meetings about that and talked about what can we do in the future. Because the real answer here is not to just concentrate on about let's get more money right now, but the real answer is how do we fix our budget system and how do we fix our tax system so we don't have this volatile tax system where we go up and down. Every time there's a little cough in the economy, we have pneumonia with our funding. And this is exactly what happened this time. We have a world crisis. There's a world economic crisis. But if you look at the numbers in California, we only went down by 2.8% in economic activities. 2.8%, but our revenues dropped by 27% because we have a failing budget system and because we have a failing tax system. It is inexcusable to have that. That is what we need to fix. We should never send our children on this roller coaster ride. It is unfair to our children, no matter how young they are or if they're in higher education. It's unfair to go and ask our children always to have an increase in the fees that they have to spend, and an increase in costs and all of those things, or have to lay off teachers or get rid of teachers or close schools and all of this. That is not a way to run a state. And this is why, since I've come into office, I've asked the legislators to reform the budget system so we have a rainy day fund, so when our economy goes down and when our revenues go down, we can draw from that rainy day fund and give it to education, because education ought to always be our number one priority. Children always ought to be our number one priority. So I hope that you help me with that, because together we can do it. And I'm going to do everything that I can to bring Democrats and Republicans together this year to solve this problem once and for all, so that we have a stable source of revenues for all of those very important programs. So I want to say thank you again to all of you for your great work that you're doing. Let's continue working together, because if we work together, we can do the impossible. Thank you very much, and I'll be back. Thank you.